What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the THI podcast brought to you by TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me from Kenan Stadium, as you can tell by his backdrop, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, I was in that stadium about 3 hours ago. I didn't think I'd be saying that on the podcast. I didn't think we'd be doing a podcast this late after a spring game. But, post game took a little bit long. Other things, other technical difficulties, it's always something, right?
It took like 35 minutes before we even got back. By the way, you see, I've got like a point there. I've got the bell tower in the back.
I know. It's
we
like
usually do that when we go on the field. So
yeah.
Exactly. So I had to make it somewhat normal.
Yeah,
we decided to have Jacob go home and do it so he can get some other stuff going. And because post game here takes so long.
Oh, it does. It does. And that's a good segue too, AJ, because I did upload a top plays from the spring game video about 30 minutes ago. So go check that out on our YouTube channel below after this video is done, of course, and stay tuned for other stuff on TarHeelIllustrated.com. We'll be having, coming out over the next few hours and tomorrow morning, I'm sure as well. But AJ, we got to witness a spring game today. Spring practice in a way too. I know there was a scrimmage towards the end. Again, we'll talk about it later, but not a lot of contact, not a lot of hitting. So I know it was a game in some ways, but I almost glorified it as a glorified practice, which we talked about coming into this one. But we still got to see the both teams scrimmage, got to see the top offensive starters go up against the top defensive starters. So still a lot of takeaways, which we'll hit on in a second. Let's start with the offense. I think we split this up like we tend to do with this, because I think there's a lot of things to talk about. So we'll start with the offensive side of the ball first. Give me some of your biggest players that stood out, or just some of your biggest observations from being up there in the press box today.
Well, they had this young quarterback named Drake May that
I don't know if you guys have heard of him.
Probably going to like him. I got a pretty sneaky suspicion he might get some playing time this year.
Yeah.
Got a pretty good arm, got good footwork,
Bold statement saying he might play this year, right?
He told us at the beginning of spring practice that one of his missions was to improve his footwork, and you could see today it's improved, but maybe the best pass he threw all day was he threw off his back foot. He was rolling to the right, threw off his back foot, hit THI Walker, so there's nothing else to say about Drake. Drake is Drake. He's really good. He's better. One thing I will say that's a little interesting is that they're not sending in plays the way they did a year ago. A lot of times they're sending something directly to Drake, and then he signals to his teammates what the play is. And they think they can get it in faster that way, although sometimes they'll switch it up the sideline so defenses can't zero in and figure out exactly what they're doing. The same thing with cadence. They have a different cadence, a different snap, clap, if you will. They've changed it up so teams can't get a beat on them. So I was paying a little bit of attention to that today, and he's a pro. He's
for sure.
Probably the number one pick of the draft next year. So we'll move on to what people maybe don't know as much about. THI Walker. I was raving about him first time I saw him at practice 5 weeks ago, and he didn't disappoint today. And the thing that Drake said about him afterward that was really interesting, it's like, look, he's a speed guy. He's a take the top off the defense guy. And I'm paraphrasing here, but then he did say that he runs great routes. Like, people don't appreciate the route running that he exudes because he is so fast, because he's so electrifying. But he ran a really nice route to get a ball, a short pass over on the right side, and then juke two defenders. Very smooth, shifty, but darting shifty at the same time. So he makes guys miss. Carolina fans are going to love him.
Yeah, he's good, man. He really is. He really is.
He's going to be their leading receiver. He's going to be their leading receiver. Drake said Josh Downs was shiftier, twitchier, but I think that Dez has more big play potential than Josh. I mean, I know that's a mouthful, but Josh was kind of a possession guy in the slot. Dez is on the outside. He's not doing any slot stuff. So he was fantastic. Nate McCullum was good. He made a great touchdown catch on a ball that Drake threw behind him. He's a presence out there. He's a guy that caught 60 balls for Georgia Tech last year. So he looks like a guy that caught 60 balls in the ACC. Kobe Paysource had a phenomenal spring. He looked good. Gavin Blackwell had a nice little catch today. I like that part of the offense. I think the running back situation is okay. We still got to see what guys get healthy. Caleb Hood needs to get healthy. George Pettaway was out there limping around today. He didn't participate. Bruce Brooks did a lot of stuff, but they were in thud. So they didn't do full contact today. They did thud, which is, a little bit more than half speed, and you don't bring guys to the ground. So in part, that's one of the reasons they didn't have any injuries today. I will say the offensive line, though, got beat a lot by the defensive front.
Yeah, I would agree.
The first team offense, second team offensive line, both of them got beat a lot. Now, on the flip side, I know we're not talking defense, but I will add to that, the defensive front's quicker. I wrote a piece, I wrote it in my notes a couple of times, and we've talked, I think, as well in a pod about how Gene Chizik has emphasized the short area quickness improving with each guy. And we saw that today. They were quick off the snap. The offensive line struggled with that a little bit. Ritchie a couple of times, Murphy a couple of times. They got in the backfield. They made stops on the ball carrier before the line of scrimmage. So, I mean, I can't sit here and say, based on today, the offensive line's in great shape. I do think it's in solid shape. I think it's going to get better, but maybe that's a good sign for Carolina fans that the defense is up front is a little bit better. So we didn't see the tight ends do a whole lot. Bryce and Nesbitt didn't play.
Yeah,
I think nice catch. Yeah, I think. Oh, and Connor Harrell. Connor Harrell didn't look very good at times. He really missed badly on some stuff. He was too long on the long ball. He was too wide on some of the short outs, and he was high on something over the middle. Max said he was pleased that Connor got a chance to play in front of some fans. I don't know how many people were here, maybe about 6,000, 7,000.
Yeah, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, it seemed like that was probably it. So he got to play in front of some fans. He was 1 for 6 at one point. Drake, I think, was 11 for 13 at one point. And then Trey Scott's doing all the gamer stuff. He'll have all those stats for you. So Connor looked okay at times. He's got speed. He can get out of trouble and dart. So that's a good thing. But a couple times he kind of rolled, and I wasn't really sure what the objective was. So they have a lot of work to do for backup quarterback.
Yeah, I think
they need to find. They got to figure out the running back room, and Connor needs a lot of work. This is a really important offseason for him because they need less of a gap between Drake and the backup. Yeah, and maybe they'll get that. And the summer's going to be really important. But as far as offensive line goes, Mac was asked about the portal. We can talk about the portal later, actually.
Yeah, we'll hit on the portal. Yeah,
I want to go 10 straight minutes here, but he was asked about the portal, what they might be looking for, so we can hit on that a little bit later. But it does have to do with the offensive line. Yeah,
for sure. No, I agree with kind of everything you brought up. I think from being down on the field doing video, Tez Walker, Nate McCullum that you mentioned stand out kind of automatically. They bring they even kind of bring an element of experience to the field. I don't really know how to explain it necessarily, but you can just kind of see guys that have played a lot of college football before. It just feels like that when they're out there. And then you see some of these other freshmen come up and it's just not quite the same, or some people who maybe were redshirted last year, didn't play a lot last year. You can just tell these guys have played in big time games, made plays in games, and, have a lot of experience. So I think that's invaluable to that wide receiver room. I do think the wide receiver room is really deep too, AJ. So I think that's another positive as well, because there's a lot of pieces in there and guys that we've talked about it before that you just kind of forget about. But there's a lot of really nice pieces. And I do agree with the O-line. And we'll hit on the defense in a second, which I'm going to segue to just in a second. But I want to say about the O-line that I thought the defense looked really good today. And maybe I know the O-line depth-wise still needs to build up some of that depth, and it's going to take some time to do that throughout the fall. And, that's still definitely a concern going into the year. But I do agree with you that I think starting-wise and a couple of the backups that they have, I think, can go out there and do some nice things. And I think they have a solid starting line, but there are some new faces in there too. So, it takes a little bit of time to adjust and get used to playing with each other and all that jazz. So I do think the O-line will be fine. But, yeah, depth is definitely a concern there for sure.
Yeah, they want 8.
Yeah.
I don't think they have 8 right now.
I don't think they have 8 right now either, no.
I think with Ed Montilus back, I think they have 7, because you can add Willie Lampkin and there's the bells going on back here. I'm actually in an open air part of the press box, as you can tell. And also Jonathan Adorno, but they need more, and they're having trouble getting beyond that. Zach Rice, I thought, actually played pretty well at guard today. Some watching Eli Sutton play, he's going to be the heir apparent perhaps at one of the tackle spots. They've got some work to do there with the offensive line. There are a lot of the guys that Mac has recruited into the program haven't really materialized yet. And that's an issue moving forward, because they will lose Gaynor for sure for 24. They will lose Roland for 24. They will lose Barnes for 24. So there's not a whole lot of experience behind that. So they need to get that worked out. And We'll hit on the portal stuff later. I'm teasing it, but I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I'm interested.
I don't want to go off track too much here. I want to stay on point.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm interested to see what Mac had to say about it as well, because I haven't heard the press conference as of right now. Moving on to the defense, I told Brandon was on the field taking some photos with me as well. And I told him I thought the defense outperformed the offense today. I just thought the defense was physical. I know they weren't doing a lot of hitting, but even with some of the mock hitting, or lack of a better, I forgot what the right word is for it.
Thud.
Yeah, thud. There we go. There was a little bit still of you could see the defense kind of flying around, a lot of talking, a lot of communicating, a lot of congratulating, for lack of a better word. That's one thing I noticed during the first practice is that we got to see, even during some of the mock scrimmaging, that it did seem like the defense was a little bit more, communicated a little bit more, and was just a little bit more complimentary of each other, a little bit more together, for lack of a better word. I noticed that again today. And overall, I'm not going to go into individual guys. I'll leave that to you, because you were getting to watch a bird's eye view from the press box, excuse me. But I thought the defense outperformed the offense today. And I think there's just a lot of guys out there that I think can make plays. And I think if they can get that defensive line right to where it should be, I think you mentioned the D-line was quicker. I noticed that today as well. I really do think if they can get that defensive line to a place where it can just generate some kind of consistent pass rush, I think this defense has a chance to be much improved from last season. I'm not going to say great, but I think much improved from last season is something this defense can do.
I think the most important thing they need to do, we saw some of that today, is they need to stop the run on first down.
Yeah.
Stop the run before you get a pass rush. And one way you can stop the run is to have really good gap discipline. And I asked Cedric Gray afterward today about the short area quickness that Gene Chiswick's talked about. I actually asked Mac about that with the defensive front, and he said yes, that's something they've improved across the board. In particular, Tamari Fox and he looked good today. And Travis Shaw, who didn't play today, but Travis has had a really good spring. He's lost weight, and his short area quickness has improved. So what is short area quickness? It's off the snap. It's your space and being quick. And part of that is you could take off and you're quicker off the snap than before. So when you're low, you can be in control of your gap a little bit more. Then that becomes gap discipline. Cedric's response was, I kind of think we were quick before, but it was really gap discipline. So we're hearing short area quickness and we're hearing gap discipline, which are the two of the 3 or 4 things that you must have at the defensive front. And we saw that today. Now, if that's an indictment on the offensive line, well, that'll be dealt with at some point. We'll know for sure by the end of September.
Yeah.
I do think it is an improvement, because my eyes didn't deceive me. They were quicker in the backfield. Ritzy, Murphy. We saw Tamari Fox get back there a couple of times. And I'm telling you, 30 snaps a game for a guy like that is going to make that front better. KBJ is healthy. He's doing some better things as well. Kevin Hester continues to get better. Jacoby Cowan played very well today. And Bo Atkinson might be in the mix come fall. I asked Mac afterward, said, you've mentioned Bo's name quite a few times this spring. He looked good today. He was playing the power end, rush end. He was lining up on both sides and had a lot of success. He looks like a really physical dude, physical presence on the edge there. And Max said, yeah, he's got a real good shot of being in the mix. Basically said he was in the mix, maybe on the back end of the mix, but he's in his second year. He was an early rollie a year ago. So I think that's big moving forward, because you've got to envision a couple of years down the road with some of these guys. And I think he's one of those players, though. It was definitely a difference. I asked Kamen about the front being quicker as well, and he said it's absolutely quicker.
Yeah.
So what that does is when you have gap discipline, you're going to be better at stopping the run. Cedric said before, sometimes guys would take their eye off their own gap and they'd leave, and then disaster would happen. So trust, when you hear football players talk about trust, especially on defense, it's essential, because you've got 11 guys with 11 responsibilities. Once you take your eye off your responsibility because maybe you don't trust somebody else, that's 2 responsibilities that are going to fail. Yours, because you've left it, and the other guy, because you're looking over there because he's not excelling in it. So if they can take care of their 11 individual responsibilities and do that on a consistent basis, and it absolutely begins up front, because if you don't have gap discipline, a linebacker cheats, and then he overruns a play and you get 15 yards. So that, I think, is the thing that was a big focus in this camp, being more comfortable. We've heard that word a lot. Gene has said it. Some of the defensive guys have said it. And it's not just more comfortable in the scheme. It's more comfortable within the scheme. It's not just understanding what to do, but once the ball's snapped, staying in scheme, not leaving the scheme. That is vital. And I thought we saw that today. I thought today the staff's going to grade out the defense much better than the offense, especially for the essentials of staying within scheme and executing what you were supposed to do.
Just to focus on two more things, I thought Armani Gainer looked really good today. Again, made a play. You'll see it in the highlights I posted. He wasn't really a sack because of a thudding, but he essentially got a sack. Mac whistled it down for one. So he looks the part too. Again, you see him on the field, you see him up close and personal. He just looks like an experienced ACC guy who's meant to play the jack position. I don't really know how to explain it. For people with the spring game, you get it, but.
Yeah, on TV, a lot of times before a team's getting ready to run out of the total one final time, like 10 minutes before kickoff, 8 minutes before kickoff, and they'll show a team approach the total. A lot of times the coach is in front, and at Carolina, it's strength coach Brian Hess because he's like, wild dude, right? And get them all fired up and stuff. Yeah. He's a really wild dude. Yeah. You want Amari Gainer at the front of that.
100%.
You want Amari Gainer at the front of that.
First one off the bus, first one off the plane. 100%.
You want, especially on the road. You want him the first guy the fans see.
I think I said it in the podcast, AJ. I said if I'm Carolina, I don't even send 3 or 4 captains out. I just send him out just by himself. I think that alone would
send Drake out because Drake's
I guess send Drake out there if you have to. But if you just want an intimidating presence, for sure.
Drake has the whole stud thing that you got to send Cedric out there.
Yeah,
Cedric
that's true. They
smooth too.
They got a nice little, they got a few guys you can send out there to the middle before the game.
They have some picturesque looking football players. There's no doubt about it.
For sure.
Cedric's on that list too. Cedric, Drake, Gainer. Rucker looks pretty good, but he's, he looks fine too. I'm not going to say anything about it. I like Cayman.
He's fantastic too. He made some plays again.
I'm talking about if you're sculpting. We've gotten way off track here.
We have, but it's okay.
If you're sculpting the way a quarterback looks, he looks like Drake. If you're sculpting the way a Jack looks, he looks like Gainer. If you're sculpting the way a linebacker looks, he looks like Cedric Clay. So we need an offense. Send Tess Walker out there because he's going to – everyone's going to know that, that guy's going to run into the end zone tonight at some point.
Yeah,
so
no doubt. No, you're absolutely right. We can continue to brainstorm on who their best captain lineup is.
This will be one of our summer daily pods.
Yeah, that's not a bad one, man.
We're gonna drop pods every weekday at 11, or at least Monday through Thursday at 11 a.m. And there are gonna be some interesting topics. We're gonna go sort of radio show topic on you, and maybe this will be one of the topics.
Yeah, who should be the first 4 off the bus? I think will be a fun one. I think that's kind of
off the bus, out of the tunnel, and then at the coin flip.
Mix and match a little bit because I think there's some options.
And you want a guy at the coin flip who sounds like he's already been playing for a couple of hours. You want him to sound nasty.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just pissed off.
You know what I said? You always want guys in football on your defense that when they were kids, they used to steal other kids' lunch money.
That's exactly right.
You need a dude like that at the coin flip.
Exactly right. You're 100% right about that. That's you couldn't have said anything more truthful on this podcast.
We have so derailed this. Let's get back on track.
Hey, it's fine because we're not too far from wrapping this one up anyway. Real quickly, just staying on the defense. We'll talk about the portal last in a second, but linebacker depth, I think it's something we should talk about because I think it's still an issue. We kind of pinpointed the offensive line depth as an issue on the offensive side of the ball. I think when you're looking at the defense, I do think it's that linebacker depth because, AJ, there's just no body really. I mean, Juice Caldwell did some nice things today, but he's inexperienced. There's just not a lot of guys behind 2 really good linebackers and Power Eccles and Cedric Gay.
Well, they want it to be Sebastian Cheeks, but he's got to stay healthy. And
he was limited today again as well.
Yeah. So his summer is going to be big. When he gets into fall camp, that's going to be big. And I do think Deuce Caldwell's coming along.
Yeah.
He's a guy that, he's maturing. He's got a great personality for the position, but that position also requires a ton of focus. And that's something he's learning how to do as a college player. But he's got some physique to him. He's a hard hitter. He made a play in the backfield today, and he didn't do the Karate Kid sign or whatever it was.
I know. I was disappointed.
Year.
I was a little disappointed by that.
I think that's a good thing because his mind's on get up and get back to the next play.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
High energy kid. So definitely a high energy kid.
Yeah. So, but you're right. They have some questions there. And if either Cedric or Power go down, I think they got some issues. So we'll see. But they need Cheeks. He really needed this spring, didn't really get much. So the August 3rd or whatever it is, they start. That's going to be a huge day for that position group and for the running back room and perhaps for depth along the offensive line where there's always attrition. There's always attrition on the offensive line. So
yeah, there's no doubt about that. All right, AJ, the last thing, you're going to enlighten me because I haven't heard Mac Brown's press conference yet. So talk to me about the portal opening today and maybe some of Mac's comments about it.
Well, they could lose some guys. Mac was very open. He's very upfront with these kids. And he actually met with the parents this morning and said, look, we all think our kid's the best. We all think our grandkid's the best, our nephew's the best, or whatever the case is. But the coaches here are going to put the best people on the field to give us the best chance to win. And if they tell the players are going to meet with their position coaches the next couple of days as their exit interviews. And if one of them tells your son that they don't see a way he gets on the field next year, and you think the best in his best interest is to move on, then you should move on. Yeah. So it's not encouraged, but I think they understand that if that's what somebody needs to do, then they need to do it. They don't want to keep anybody there that doesn't want to be there, has doubts about being there. So I do think that the transparency is very important. What that means is you could see a few guys enter the portal. There's a couple of names that I've heard floated around. I'm not going to say them here. It's not fair to those kids to say that, but I've heard a couple of names. And if that happens, I wouldn't be surprised. Then afterward, maybe I could say that's one of the guys I was talking about. But I think what's actually more interesting, and they do have some scholarships available, is who do they get? What do they look for? Mac was asked, what position groups might you have an eye on? And I didn't think he would actually say anything because you don't want to plant seeds in some kids' heads. But he said that offensive line depth, which is the hardest position, offensive line, quarterback, are the two hardest positions to recruit because they're so hard to gauge down the road. But they need offensive line depth. So they might look at an offensive line depth. That running back.
Yeah.
So they don't know what they have at running back. People think that they know what they have because of what star ratings said when these kids were in high school. But star ratings don't mean a damn thing when these kids get to college.
Yeah. A lot of talent, but nobody's really emerged yet. No.
You could put a name in every seat in this stadium for a 4-star or 5-star kid that never materialized. I mean, there's just a lot of them. So it's a crapshoot in a lot of ways. And a lot of it has to do with love of the game, the care. You can't gauge that a lot of times. I'm not saying that kids that haven't panned out didn't love the game. I'm just saying there are a lot of variables here. So running back, offensive line, backup offensive line. I do think if a younger guy is in the portal who might be able to help them at linebacker, I think they might take a fly on that.
I think so.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And now he did say that they've already had a few kids reach out to him today. So he had no idea if anybody entered. They played their spring game. Guys can go and enter right away. Now there's a process. They have to fill out paperwork through compliance. Compliance has to submit it. So unless some kid had already done that and was already in the process, it just needed that popped into the system, we probably won't hear of anything today or tomorrow, but we might Monday. So they're going to have the staff's going to have a meeting Monday. They're going to do full end evaluation. They're going to line up the depth chart. We're going to run what we think we're going to run a daily piece on a different position group. What we think the depth chart might be. Of course, that might be a little bit fluid depending on what kids stick around, what kids don't.
Yeah.
So you might see some activity, but it's normal. There's activity everywhere. Carolina fans tend to get really, really down on either program when they lose kids. But I'm telling you right now, they upgraded in the winter, December, what they brought in from the portal as opposed to what they lost. They upgraded. Mm-hmm. And basketball very well could upgrade too. I actually think they're in the process of doing that right now. So if a guy doesn't want to be there, don't tug at the pant leg. Let him go and find someone who does want to be there and 100%. Win with them.
That's how you build a program. Yeah. That's how you build a program that can compete every year. You got to have guys that want to be there for the right reasons. And I think when you look at who they brought in the portal and, some of the guys that might leave in the next couple of days, I think that's what they're trying to do at North Carolina right now.
Yeah,
they're trying to have guys that want to be there for the right reasons.
They don't ease into the schedule in a manner that they can give kids time to get acclimated, to give someone 15 reps here and there in a game. No. They jump right into it with South Carolina. Then they got App State. Then they got Minnesota. And then they got to go to Pittsburgh before they have an open date. They have got to win out of the gate. Mm-hmm. They said that 9 isn't enough. We talked about that earlier. I asked some guys about that today. 9 isn't enough. And in order to win more than 9 games, you have got to be ready to go right out of the gate. So I do think there's a sense of urgency. If there is activity in the portal on Carolina's part, I think it'll be because of that, because they've got to have that backup linebacker. They got to have that backup offensive tackle ready to go against South Carolina. If Spencer Rowland or William Barnes tweak an ankle in that game or sprain an ankle, if there's a targeting call on Power Eccles in the second quarter, you got to have someone that could go in there and you could trust on the field. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of activity.
Yeah, me either, AJ. We'll leave it at that. Stay tuned. Keep it locked to TarIllustrated.com. Well, obviously, if anybody does transfer, you'll be the first to know at TarIllustrated.com. If you want to sign up, you can sign up for just $8.33 a month. Become a premium subscriber. Become a Carolina Insider too. Come join our awesome community. Links below. Again, it's just $8.33 a month. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Make sure you go check out the Top Plays video we dropped on our YouTube channel as well. If you want to see some highlights from the spring game, go ahead and like this video below as well if you're excited for the football season. AJ, I'm going to let you run because it's officially 8 p.m. Eastern time. And who would have thought we'd be doing a podcast at 8?
It's 8 o'clock and it's still late out. I know, man. I still have to write. My wife's going to hate me.
It feels like it's almost
she goes out of town tomorrow. She goes out of town. She works tomorrow. She goes out of town Monday with a friend for her birthday's Tuesday. So she and her friend go to the beach for that, which is why I then have my beach trip like a week later. Right?
Nice, man.
My thing. So I told her, I said we would kind of hang out because the Orioles aren't playing. They played today. I said, we'll hang out and spend some time together. I'll come in and say, hey, good night. She goes, good night. That was it. That's our time.
I've had to learn the hard way too, AJ, with my fiance. I'll be like, yeah, I'll be done by like 6:30 and 8 o'clock rolls around. And you're like, yeah, went a little bit.
Never happens.
But it's fine. It is what it is, man. It's nature of the beast. Nature of the beast, as they say. Yeah. Well, AJ,
if this was a real game, I'd be here till 11:30.
Oh, God. Yeah, at least. Maybe 11. Come on, AJ. You might be doing yourself. 11:30 might be too early, if we're being honest.
Well, Brandon and Trey are writing, which will help. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I forgot they're grinding away. Yeah, well, that's good.
Right now. Trey finished. He's on his way home. I think Brandon's still up there right now.
Still grinding away. He's got some photos to edit as well, so he's probably doing that too, hopefully, because we're going to get those as well. So, yeah, exactly. Well, AJ, I'll let you go because I know you got 1,000 things to do.
He's going to have to deal with my Stalin side.
Go slam your fist on the table and tell him to get to work, man. AJ, let's get the heck out of here before we derail another podcast.
Right, see you.
See you, man.
Later.
Appreciate y'all watching. We'll see y'all the next one. Thanks.